Welcome back, everybody. Mike Ernest here, going through the third act of the Active Influence program, Mastering Influential Conversations. So this week, we started by reviewing and really integrating MTech's desired attributes of how we work with our customers. And so I broke them out into slightly longer, or nearly sentence formats. So I want to review those with you just to keep them top of mind when you're interacting with the three types of customers that we've identified, such as your boss and other people at above you in the organization, your clients out in the field, as well as your direct reports. And when we think about that in terms of how we actually want to engage with them, here's the list. Customers like MTech staff who, when I say like, it really means value, place value on, appreciate, are more willing to work with, are more willing to do more effort or put more effort in with. And again, here's the list. That they're user-friendly and understanding of politics, meaning group constraints, right? Everybody has constraints, and it could be budget, it could be skill sets, it could be timing, it could be materials, it could be a lot of different things. But having people realize that we're trying to work with them within the constraints of what they're dealing with is a good thing. It doesn't mean we need to settle and accept less than what you need, but at least demonstrating that you're aware of them through asking clarifying questions is going to be an important attribute that you continue to work on. Second one, improve risk management by pointing out issues early. Third, strengthen the partnership through consistent quality. Fourth, maximize collaboration by challenging their beliefs. You need to do that in a good way. We'll talk more about that today. And then generate innovation by introducing new ideas. Same thing. We'll talk more about how to do that today. So today is really all about the third step in the ACT model, which is the telling 101. As Winston Churchill says, personally, I'm always ready to learn, although I don't always like being taught. And I'd say that it sums up the human psyche pretty well. And you don't need to go further than yourself to test this concept, that we're always willing and open and like the idea of learning something new and kind of gaining knowledge. But what we don't like is having people talk at us and preach or push their information on us. So when we talk about telling, and that's then in that third and all-important step of our communication process, it's all about how do we share information in a way that is seen as helpful and appreciated from the person we're interacting with or the group versus us just telling them what we want to tell them. So when we look at this process, there are really three different types of things that we can tell people. One of them is the blind spots, meaning things that they just they're not aware of, or they're not putting into the conversation yet. So we want to make sure that we bring those things up and we're able to talk to things that are missing from the conversation in order to make the best decision on what to do next possible. Second one are insights, and we talked about the fact that this is a great one. It's just a little bit of it's more of a macro thing that we'd like to identify insights, and it really should go across projects. It's not just about you trying to think of something really intelligent to say. Oftentimes it's about the company identifying what's a better way of doing a project, or here's a new technology that could be used to streamline or speed up the project. So we're going to avoid really focusing on insights for right now. We're going to keep our attention on blind spots and the next steps. So the final one there is the next steps, and that's at the end of the call, as we've talked about in our process. We want to make sure that we obtain some kind of agreement as a result of our conversation. So getting more into the blind spots themselves, the blind spots are issues the customer isn't understanding enough or isn't paying attention to enough. And there really are three key steps that we've got to remember. The first one is agree, and the acronym, by the way, is ABC. So the first thing we do is we agree. We promote what the group or the customer and seller agree on. So in the project management world, I'm sure we can find something of agreement saying, yeah, we are all working towards a specific date, or we're all trying to work towards getting off this job, or we're all trying to get something done in a certain period of time. And that's something that both you and the person you're talking to can agree on. And then we build. We add in what's missing. Additionally, I noticed that, or we can say, what I haven't heard yet is, or we can use many other words to introduce this concept. But it's really about how do we, it's about us introducing something that's been not discussed yet in the conversation. And so in doing so, we want to share our facts about what we see as correct. So if we're concerned about where the electrician is in their project compared to where we need to be, we need to point out the facts. And it could be around the conduit. It could be around there isn't power to the building. It could be around other physical things that you're seeing. or it could be around the amount of time that's required between two steps. Lots of different facts that you could share, and then you explain your conclusions after saying those facts. So it could sound like, so the facts would sound like, because I don't see the conduit, because I don't see the, the power, being turned on to these units, my conclusion is that this is behind schedule. And then, lastly, we talk about using tentative language, so we can say, it seems to me that we are going to be behind schedule. It seems to me that the electrician is behind schedule. And then we compare. So that's the C in the ABC process. We compare and identify the differences in understanding between what we've just put on the table, as well as, or compared to what they think is going on. So we encourage testing by inviting opposing views, like, I'd really like to hear the other side of the story, or I'd really like to hear it from your vantage point, or I'd love to hear kind of if you think that there's anything that I'm saying that isn't 100% accurate. Lots of different ways that we can compare our information in relation to what in this case, the general contractor is thinking. So those are blind spots. Insights. Here's again the basic concept of what an insight is. It challenges customer assumptions. Whatever you teach, it must provoke the customer to reframe how they are thinking about their business. You're looking for things, the reactions like, I've never thought about that like that. You want them to engage and feel a little bit unsettled from this new information. That's really what an insight is. And again, we're going to leave that one alone, but it's in the deck, so I want to talk through it. So last is the next steps. So we check for the questions and concerns, we summarize benefits for action, and we propose a logical commitment and next steps. And so there's a fair amount of content here, and I'm going to leave this for the deck for you to review because it's pretty self-explanatory. The important thing is that you understand that in the next steps, we really want to check, for concerns before we wrap up the call. We want to summarize the reasons why we want to take action, and we want to propose a logical commitment that embraces or embodies that action that we're trying to get to an agreement on. So it can sound like, hey, before we kind of wrap up this conversation, is there anything that any concerns you have that I haven't touched on, or anything else you'd like to discuss before we try to get to the end here? And then they'll say no most of the time, and you say, okay, so because we need to get started on this date, and because we're not seeing the conduit where it should be at this point in the project, what we're really saying is that justifies a quick meeting with the electrician, and I just want to see if that makes sense as the logical next step. Is we're gonna within 24 hours we're all gonna sit down with the electrician and figure out really where they're at. Does that sound fair? And so that's it. That's how you summarize the next steps, and you put a request out there that for agreement or not. If they don't agree, then you have some more conversation to do. So you jump back into the conversation. You may have to clarify some more. You may have to tell some more. But we need to get to the actual conclusion of an agreement. We talked again about the ACT model itself, and we really talked about it this time from a what do we check? Like, if we're going to see how are we doing in our managing our conversations, we're going to be looking for those questions between the steps. And so when we're going from alignment to clarify, we want to ask the question, is it okay if I ask you a few questions right now? Is this a good time, or do we have a few minutes? That type of thing. And then going from clarify to tell, we want to obtain the okay if, can I share some information with you? And so it's going to be in light of what you just said and some of your concerns, I'd love to share some information that I have regarding that topic. And then the final one is between tell and the end of the call, and that's obtaining agreement on the next steps. Do we have an agreement? And can you agree that this is the thing that we need to do? So those are the three simplest identifiers for how are we managing a conversation. And we can tell a lot from that. So when we go to this next step of how do we actually measure performance, and we say it must be objective, it needs to be focused on the agreed upon skills, it must be able to compare results over time, and it needs to be fast and easy. We use this ACT scorecard that I'm going to provide to you in this actual email that I'll send out, and it's also on our website, or my website, so you can download it anytime. So and really what you'll see is that there are 3 core steps, between those phases, and we're going to be utilizing observers whenever possible, and they're going to be watching for those types of activities, and they're either going to strongly agree or they're going to disagree that, in that continuum that I'll explain in a second. they're going to provide you that feedback on how did you do. Or you can even use this for yourself after a conversation, and you can just sit there and try to remember it and say, did I do these things, and how did I do, and what can I do differently next time? So when we look at the scorecard process, we have an observer who utilizes the scorecard to measure the seller's performance during the conversation. The observer is asked to document whether the specific skill has been performed effectively during a sales conversation. And the observer either strongly agrees, disagrees, strongly disagrees, or it's not applicable because, for some reason, for example, the seller, may bring up, a part of this conversation. They may ask for some insights or solutions, and so we don't need to ask them. So that may be not applicable at times. And then finally, the observer and seller review the reported findings together and see, what happened and what could be done differently next time. And that's the basic process. So how often should you utilize a scorecard? I think weekly would be a pretty smart thing. And if you'd ever have a chance to have, somebody observe you, I think that would be even better than trying to do it yourself. And that's probably a little bit longer discussion in terms of the how to actually get that integrated into your processes. But keep in mind that this scorecard is helpful. It will be useful, whether it's just you using it for yourself, or we can get other people to observe you, or you can observe other people. It's a good, very fundamental baseline scorecard. They can get much more sophisticated, but again, from where we're starting from, I think this is perfect for right now. Let me talk about call planning. And so call planning 101. And as Benjamin Franklin said nicely, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And in this case, I think that's so true in terms of, if it's an important conversation or something that's meaningful, plan it. And that clarity will pay dividends for sure. And so we have the planning steps. Step 1, the call objective. Decide on what your objective is. And remember that it must be focused on what your customer will do as a result of the conversation. So all important. First step, we have to think about the conversation. We need to think about, what do we want from this? Why are we having this conversation? What outcome are we looking for? And we need to write it down in a way that we're asking the buyer to do something. The customer needs to step up and put some skin in the game. They need to agree to a follow-up meeting. They need to agree to getting a meeting with other people put together. They need to do something. Whatever the case is, an agreement isn't that you're going to do something and get back with them. The agreement on that would be, I need 3 days to get this particular task done, and let's get back together on this time. Let's put it in our calendar that we're going to have this chat at this time. So that would be more of an agreement. What would an agreement would look like, if the majority of the effort needs to be on your behalf. So then we have step 2, clarifying questions. We need to clarify really 2 types of questions: the required questions and the issue questions. And the required questions again are all about, what do we need to know to not be blindsided, not look stupid, not be caught off guard. So when we start sharing our information, that we have a good understanding of what's going on. And that's the required questions. The issue questions are around clarifying, what do they care about? What are their motivators? What are their urgencies? What do we need to know about how they look at this? So when it comes to us telling our information, as well as asking for a next step and some kind of agreement, we're doing so in alignment with what their concerns are. And so this is something that is probably the hardest skill, and also probably the most important one. Because if you want more influence over people, you need to understand what they care about. You don't need to be right. You don't need to be, have a strong position. What you need, in addition to that, is to be able to align with what these people are thinking and how they see the world. And in doing so, everything just happens faster and it's easier. And quite frankly, it works better. So do it. Step 3, tell statements. Decide if there are any data points you want to share with the customer that will add to their clarity and urgency to agree on your next suggested steps. So again, if something's missing, you need to add it, or if you feel something's missing. And of course, this is just a plan, right? As Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And our plan, if we have this thing written down, if we thought about it in more detail or in decent detail, the conversation is going to ebb and flow depending on what comes out of the buyer or the customer's mouth. So we may be changing some things. We may, get rid of a tell statement or a tell concept because they've brought it up or they know about it. Or, we may have not, thought that they were going to, in our situation, maybe the schedule did change and maybe there is an update. And so there are a lot of things that we need to get rid of in our call plan. So we need to be flexible, but this planning and clarifying what we think we need to be asking about and what we need to be prepared to share with them, to tell them, they're very important. And step 4 is you have the conversation. Have the conversation with this document in front of you when appropriate. Sometimes it's not complicated enough, it doesn't make sense. But certainly in things like weekly meetings, it's natural and normal for you to have notes in front of you, and having this in front of you will allow you to jot down notes. So my suggestion is that you have these conversations with the notes. However, if it's a situation which really seems unnatural, then don't do that. Keep them close by and try to jot down the notes from the meeting as quickly as possible thereafter. And step number 5 is the call plan review. Within 12 hours of the conversation, update your call plan to include notes and next steps of the conversation. And those are the two things. The biggest one is, what is the next step? What specifically did this person agree that we're going to do? And then most likely, the other one that you want to track is, what are their concerns? What were they concerned about? What are their motivators? And so that's another thing that oftentimes we kind of lose sight of relatively quickly. So we want to make sure we jot that down. And then fourth, share the call plan results. Share the results with the people that you think really could benefit from hearing this information. Not about how you did, not about the good questions that you asked, but the knowledge. We're looking for the information that your boss, for example, ought to hear about, and some insights that you may be hearing that you'd like to share, with your boss or some other people within the organization. So keep that in mind, that you're having these conversations, especially when you have better quality conversations. You're going to be pulling more data out of it, more valuable data, and there are other people within your organization that probably could benefit from that. So then then we practiced our role plays, and good work on that, and there was some good discussions had. And then the homework, the blind spots. Identify the typical blind spots your customers have and practice explaining into them. Right? It's not that big of a list of things that they probably aren't understanding. The sequence, the how the various trades work together, the real drop dead timeframes that you guys need to get in, to get out. So blind spots probably again is not a huge list, and be helpful to clarify that. Insights, we're going to leave that alone, and then call planning session is pick a time that you give me a shout and let's go through call plan soup to nuts. I've started that process already, and again, I think that if we have a couple of reps on this, it'll help you understand the value of the focus, the value of the strategy before you go in. And the more reps you do on this, the faster you're going to get and the better outcomes you're going to have. And that was it. We got to the end. And so we're through session 3. You know where to find me. I think everything's progressing exactly the way I would hope, and look forward to working with you more next week. Thanks.